Good evening, everybody. It is Steve Schmidt, and welcome to this edition of The Warning Conversations with Steven Beschloss, filmmaker, author, journalist, and fellow Substacker. I urge everybody on here to read his America Substack. It is very good. Right before we came on, uh, word that Rudolph Giuliani, Mark Meadows, former chief of staff, have been indicted by the state of Arizona, the people of Arizona, for election interference in that state. And I think about Rudolph Giuliani in the context of a person who grew up in the state of New Jersey, 25 miles away from New York City, the mob busting prosecutor, the New York City crime busting mayor, the 9/11 mayor, America's mayor, someone who was admired by the country, knighted by the Queen. Is there another person that you can think of, contextualize historically at any point in the last 100 years or so whose disgrace is as profound as his?
Well, the downward spiral of Rudy Giuliani has been not even fast, but intense and tragic for the country, accelerating downward. As you suggest, somebody who was at one time fighting crime, and suddenly, like so many others, the more he got absorbed in the orbit of Trump, the more he ended up being somebody who chose a criminal path. So, I mean, I've been very much opposed to Rudy Giuliani for a long time for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is in 2008 when he was speaking at the Republican convention, and he, trashed Barack Obama for such a major violation in his mind that he used to be a community organizer, right? That in his mind, that was somehow a low-level activity, which to me was actually a pretty honorable thing that Obama had participated in on his upward climb. And then you see now this sort of reverse movement by Giuliani. I mean, it's a tragedy. And I think a lot about the last year when, Chris Mays, who's the Attorney General of Arizona, she won by a very, very small number of votes that could very easily have gone a different way. She's been involved in the investigation over the last year of Giuliani and Mark Meadows and so forth. We would be sitting at this moment in a very different reality had Arizona, well, not only elected Democrat Chris Mays, but also Democrat Katie Hobbs as governor.
What do you see right now in the country? We have a very vivid split screen. We have the sleeping former president, flatulent in the trial, according to multiple reports. We have large protests in the nation of Georgia with a referendum on the ballot there that will really cast the country's fate towards either Russia or the European Union. A law, I should say, not a referendum that's passing through Parliament. The Polish president just volunteered his country as a base for nuclear weapons. We'd like them stationed here, essentially. How do you see the world right now?
Well, I mean, it's a big question. I think we're in as much as any time I can think of, in a very binary moment. And binary, which is the classic reality of Democrats versus Republicans, in this case, Joe Biden versus Trump, and what these two entities represent. And, you know as well as anybody, there was a time when they were both involved in the process of governing. They were both committed to a version of the democratic project. We were clear that they were committed to the democratic experiment, and we assumed that the rule of law was something that they all committed themselves to. You know, NATO has been an important force in the life of not only America, but of the world, and the advancement of the democratic project, you know, since the end of the war, and all these years since, that has created relative peace. And we see, you know, one side of, of the country that's willing to toss it all away. And I think, you know, there was a time when you might look at Poland, or you might look at Hungary, or you might look at Turkey, or you might look, you know, for that matter, in North Korea, and say, well, these are clearly, or Russia, these are clearly adversaries, and it's a, you know, it's a shared reality that we all recognize that they are a danger to our way of life. Well, here we are, 112 Republicans, which was a majority, who voted against the aid to Ukraine just in the last days. It passed. You know, the focus for many is on bipartisanship, but I would say let's also look at that 112 who thought siding with Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump is a better trajectory for the country's future, and that should alarm all of us.
I want you to call me out at any point if you think I misspeak about any of this. I'm old enough to remember President Zelensky addressing the United States Congress. That happened. And there was no evidence during the address that there would be an opposition of 112 Republican members of Congress to arming the democratic nation that has been assaulted by Russia, that has kidnapped tens of thousands of children and shipped them east, raped, murdered, maimed across the country.
And by the way, it's been willing to let more than 500,000 of its own young soldiers die as well.
And for everyone on today, what Steven just said, these are extraordinary casualty numbers. The entire American loss in the Second World War was 405,000 killed in action. And the Russians have already exceeded that number in Ukraine. These are enormous numbers from a fascist country, that all over that country, as you have the spring and summer rock concert festival, there will be fascist rock concerts and Z rallies of young people cheering the assault on Ukraine, cheering the death on. What do you think happened between Zelensky's speech and today that has created a rival historically, spot on in my view, exactly analogous to the Bund, to the vote that took place in 1940 with Charles Lindbergh on one side of it, that passed by one vote? The draft was maintained in the country. It's the exact same thing, and the peace of the world is at stake. But what is
Charles
your
Lindbergh was committed to America first, of course.
right? America first, right? The same name, right? The same organization, the same enthrallment to a foreign fascist, a foreign dictator. What happened between the first Zelensky speech in Congress and today, in your view? How do you explain?
Yeah. Well, you know, look, the quick response would be to say that that we've seen sort of the rise of Trump to the role of presumptive nominee, and we know that his position going back to 2016 was opposed to Ukraine, and put it in the policy of the Republican national agenda, you know, to oppose Ukraine, and obviously his pro-Putin commitment, we've seen that play out again and again and again over these years, and particularly, the ultimate betrayal in 2018 in Helsinki, which, I don't know about you, I will never get over his rejection of, 17 agencies of our intelligence to side with Putin. I mean, that relationship has been clear. I think as his power has risen again, that has influenced many of those 112. But I also, what I don't know, but what seems to be clear is that there is, continues to be this sort of pro-Russian mindset, and whether many of them are on the payroll, whether many of them have been busy, frankly, listening to Fox News and, the kind of pro-Putin agenda that's been playing out night after night, whether it's Tucker Carlson or others on air. I think it's created for them a safe space and a belief that somehow treating Ukraine as an adversary and Russia as an ally is somehow an acceptable path for America now and for the future.
I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning, and I invite you to subscribe on our Substack, on our YouTube channel. Follow us. Welcome to the community.